Hey everyone, and welcome to
Fast English Talk.
We're so glad you're here.
Thanks for joining us. Let's get started with today's topic.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our English Learning Podcast, where we help you improve your English in a simple, natural, and enjoyable way, step by step, day by day. My name is Jason, and I'm really excited to have you here with us today, because we're going to talk about something that almost everyone in the world has experienced at least once in their life.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia, and I'm so happy to join you again for this episode. Whether you are a student right now or you are remembering your childhood, today's topic is something very special, very emotional, and very relatable, because we're going to talk about your very first day at school.
Yes, Julia. The first day at school is something we never really forget, right? It's full of different feelings. Maybe excitement, maybe nervousness, maybe even a little fear, because it's a completely new environment, new people, new teachers, and for many learners, it's also one of the first times they have to communicate in a new way.
Exactly, Jason, and that's why this topic is especially important for English learners, because in many ways, learning English can feel just like your first day at school. You might feel shy, you might feel unsure, and you might be afraid of making mistakes, but at the same time, it's also the beginning of something new and exciting.
That's a great point, Julia. So in today's episode, we're not only going to share our personal first day at school stories, but we're also going to teach you some simple and useful English phrases that you can use in real-life situations, especially when you meet new people or start something new.
And of course, we will also give you some practical tips to help you feel more confident, more relaxed, and more comfortable when you are in a new environment, whether it's school, work, or even when you're practicing English with others.
So if you've ever felt nervous on your first day, or if you're about to start something new and you want to feel more confident, then this episode is perfect for you.
Stay with us, listen carefully, and try to learn not just the words, but also the feelings and the expressions we use, because that's how you can start speaking English more naturally.
All right, let's get started with today's topic, your first day at school. So, Julia, let's talk about something interesting. Why do you think the first day at school is so important in a person's life, even though it's just one single day?
That's a great question, Jason. And honestly, I think the first day at school is important because it's not just about going to a new place, but it's about experiencing something completely new for the very first time. And that experience can stay in your memory for many years, sometimes even for your whole life.
That's true. And I think one big reason is that the first day at school is often the beginning of a new journey, where you start learning not only academic subjects like reading and writing, but also important life skills like communication, making friends, and understanding different people.
Exactly. And for many students, it's also the first time they are away from their family for a longer period of time, which can feel a little scary at the beginning, but at the same time, it helps them become more independent and more confident in themselves.
Yes, and I think another important point is that the first day at school teaches you how to deal with new situations, because you are suddenly in a place where you don't know many people. You don't know the rules very well, and you have to learn how to adjust and feel comfortable step by step.
That's a very important lesson, Jason. And I also believe that the first day is where many friendships begin, because everyone is new, everyone is feeling similar emotions, and that makes it easier to connect with others, even if you feel shy at the beginning.
And if we connect this to learning English, it's actually very similar. Because when someone starts learning English or joins an English class, it can feel just like the first day at school. You might feel nervous, you might be afraid of making mistakes, and you might not feel confident speaking in front of others.
Yes, but just like the first day at school, those feelings are completely normal, and they don't last forever, because as you continue learning, practicing, and communicating, you slowly become more comfortable and more confident.
So the key message here is that the first day is important, not because everything is perfect, but because it is the beginning of growth, learning, and new opportunities.
Exactly, and if you can stay positive and open-minded on your first day, whether it's school or learning English, you are already taking a big step toward success.
All right, Julia. Now let me take you back to my very first day at school, because honestly, it's a memory that I still remember very clearly, even after so many years, and it was a mix of so many different emotions that I didn't fully understand at that time.
Oh, I love personal stories, Jason, especially when they are about something as special as the first day at school. So tell us, how did you feel when you first walked into your classroom?
Well, to be honest, I felt extremely nervous and a little bit scared because everything around me was completely new. The building was big, the classroom was full of unfamiliar faces, and I didn't know anyone there. So I remember standing quietly and just looking around, not really knowing what to do or where to go.
That sounds very relatable because I think many students feel exactly the same way on their first day, especially when they don't know anyone yet.
Exactly. And I remember holding my school bag very tightly, almost like it was giving me some kind of comfort. And I kept thinking in my mind, what if I can't talk to anyone? What if I make a mistake? So I stayed very quiet at the beginning.
That's such a real feeling, Jason, especially that fear of making mistakes or saying something wrong.
Yes, but then something small happened that changed everything for me. And it was actually very simple. Another student came and sat next to me, smiled, and said, "Hi." And even though it was just one word, it made me feel a little more relaxed and less alone.
Wow, that's such a powerful moment because sometimes even a small action like a smile or a simple greeting can make a big difference in how someone feels.
Absolutely. And after that moment, I slowly started to feel more comfortable. And even though I didn't talk much that day, I realized that it's okay to be nervous, and it's okay to take your time to adjust to a new environment.
That's a really important lesson, Jason, because many learners think they need to be perfect from the first day, but in reality, it's all about taking small steps.
Exactly. And if I learned one thing from my first day at school, it's that confidence doesn't come immediately. It grows slowly, with time, experience, and small positive moments.
That's such a meaningful story, Jason, and I'm sure many of our listeners can see themselves in your experience. Thank you for sharing your story, Jason, because while I was listening to you, I realized that my first day at school was a little different, but at the same time, it had many of the same emotions, like nervousness, curiosity, and a quiet kind of excitement that I didn't fully understand at that age.
That sounds interesting, Julia. So tell us, were you more nervous or more excited when you first arrived at school?
To be honest, Jason, I think I was more excited than nervous at the beginning because I had been waiting for this day for a long time, and I was very curious to see my classroom, meet my teacher, and find out what school life would be like. But as soon as I entered the classroom and saw so many new faces, I suddenly felt a little shy and unsure of myself.
That's very natural, because sometimes excitement can quickly turn into nervousness when we face something unfamiliar.
Exactly. And I remember sitting quietly at my desk, looking around the room, and noticing that everyone else seemed just as quiet and a little uncomfortable as I was, which made me realize that I was not alone in feeling that way.
That's a great observation, because many people think they are the only ones feeling nervous, but actually everyone is feeling something similar on the first day.
Yes, and then something happened that made my day very special. I met my first friend, and it started with a very simple moment, because the girl sitting next to me turned to me and asked, "Is this your first day too?" And that small question opened the door to a conversation that made me feel more relaxed and happy.
That's such a beautiful moment, Julia, because it shows how simple communication can help build connections so quickly.
Absolutely. And after that, I started to feel more confident, and even though I was still a little shy, I began to smile more, listen carefully, and slowly participate in small conversations, which made the whole experience much more enjoyable.
So what lesson did you learn from your first day at school?
I learned that it's okay to feel both excited and nervous at the same time. And more importantly, I learned that taking a small step, like asking a simple question or starting a short conversation, can completely change your experience and help you feel more comfortable in a new environment.
That's a very powerful lesson, Julia, and I think it's something all our listeners can apply, especially when they are learning English and trying to speak with others.
Exactly. Because just like on your first day at school, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be open, friendly, and willing to try.
So, Julia, after hearing both of our stories, it's very clear that the first day at school is full of different emotions, and I think it's important for our listeners to understand that whatever they feel on that day is completely normal.
Yes, absolutely, Jason, because one of the most common feelings is nervousness, where students feel a little uncomfortable, unsure, and even worried about what might happen, especially because everything is new and unfamiliar.
That's right. And along with nervousness, many students also feel shy, which makes it difficult for them to speak, ask questions, or start conversations, even if they actually want to connect with others.
Exactly, and another very common feeling is fear, especially the fear of making mistakes, the fear of being judged, or the fear of saying something wrong, which is something that many English learners can strongly relate to.
Yes, but at the same time, there is also a positive side, because many students feel excited, curious, and interested in discovering new things, meeting new people, and starting a new chapter in their lives.
That's a great point, Jason, because the first day is not only about fear and nervousness, but also about opportunity, growth, and new beginnings, which can be very motivating if you focus on the positive side.
And I think one important thing to remember is that these feelings are not permanent, because as you spend more time in the new environment, you slowly become more comfortable, more confident, and more relaxed.
Exactly, and that's why we always say, don't worry too much about your first day because it's just the beginning, and with time everything becomes easier and more natural.
So if you are feeling nervous, shy, or even a little scared, just remember that you are not alone, and that these feelings are a normal part of starting something new.
And most importantly, try to stay positive, be patient with yourself, and take small steps, because that's how confidence grows.
All right, Julia. Now let's move to something very practical and helpful for our listeners, especially for those who are learning English. some simple and useful phrases that they can use on their first day at school or in any new environment.
That's a great idea, Jason, because sometimes the biggest problem is not feelings like nervousness, but not knowing what to say. So having a few simple sentences can really help learners feel more confident and ready to communicate.
Exactly. So let's start with a very basic and important phrase. Hi, my name is Jason. This is one of the easiest ways to introduce yourself and start a conversation with someone new.
Yes, and you can also say, "Nice to meet you," after someone introduces themselves, which is a polite and friendly way to respond and continue the conversation.
Another useful phrase is, "Can I sit here?" This is very helpful when you enter a classroom or any place where you want to sit next to someone, but you're not sure if the seat is available.
That's right. And if you need help or directions, you can say something like, "Where is the classroom?" or "Can you help me, please?" These simple questions can make your first day much easier.
And if you want to start a small conversation, you can ask, "Is this your first day too?" Which is a very natural and friendly question that can help you connect with others who might be feeling the same way.
Exactly, Jason. And the key here is not to use difficult or complicated sentences, but to focus on simple, clear, and natural expressions that you can remember and use easily.
And don't worry if your pronunciation is not perfect, or if you make small mistakes, because communication is more important than perfection, especially on your first day.
Yes, just try to speak. Smile and be open, because even a few simple words can help you build confidence and create meaningful connections.
So remember, learning a few basic phrases can make a big difference, and it can turn a scary first day into a more comfortable and positive experience.
Exactly, and the more you practice these phrases, the more natural and confident you will feel when you use them in real life.
So, Julia, now let's talk about something very important. How can someone actually feel more confident on their first day at school, or in any new place where everything feels unfamiliar?
Yes, Jason, because confidence doesn't come magically. It comes from small actions, and one of the best tips is to simply smile and be friendly, because a smile can make you feel more relaxed and also help others feel comfortable around you.
That's true, and another important tip is to not be afraid of making mistakes, especially when speaking, because mistakes are a natural part of learning, and they actually help you improve faster.
Exactly, and I think a very helpful tip is to start with small conversations, even if it's just saying hello or asking a simple question, because small steps can slowly build your confidence.
Yes, and also try to remind yourself that everyone is new at some point, so you are not the only one feeling nervous, and that can really reduce pressure in your mind.
So the main idea is simple. Be kind to yourself, take small steps, and trust the process, because confidence will grow naturally with time.
Exactly. And just remember, your first day is not about being perfect, it's about starting. All right, Julia, now let's talk about something really important for our listeners. Some common mistakes people make on their first day at school, so they can avoid them and feel more confident.
Yes, Jason. One of the biggest mistakes is staying completely silent the whole day. Of course, it's normal to be shy, but if you don't speak at all, it becomes much harder to connect with others and feel comfortable.
That's true, and another common mistake is overthinking too much. Like worrying about every single word you say or thinking, "What if I make a mistake?" Because this can stop you from trying at all.
Exactly. And some students also make the mistake of isolating themselves, sitting alone all day, and avoiding interaction, even when others are trying to be friendly.
Yes, and another important point is not being afraid of judgment, because most people are actually focused on themselves, not on judging others.
So the key message is simple. Don't stay silent, don't overthink, and don't isolate yourself. Instead, try your best, even if it's just small steps.
Because every small effort you make will help you feel more confident and make your first day much easier. So, Julia, as we reach this part of the episode, I think it's really important to remind our listeners that the first day at school is not something to be afraid of. It is actually the first step into a new and exciting journey.
Yes, Jason, and I want to say to everyone listening that it's completely normal to feel nervous, but those feelings will not last forever. Every confident person you see today was once a beginner who also felt unsure on their first day.
That's a great point, Julia, because confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build slowly, by trying, learning, and not giving up, even when things feel uncomfortable at the beginning.
Exactly. And every small step you take, like saying hello, asking a question, or simply smiling, brings you closer to becoming more confident and more comfortable in new situations.
So don't be hard on yourself. Just take a deep breath, believe in yourself, and remember that your first day is the beginning of something positive, not something scary.
You are stronger than you think, and you are capable of adapting, learning, and growing every single day.
All right, Julia, before we finish today's episode, let's quickly summarize what we talked about so our listeners can remember the most important points easily.
Yes, Jason. Today we talked about the first day at school and how it can bring many different feelings like nervousness, excitement, and shyness. But all of these emotions are completely normal and part of every new beginning.
We also shared our personal stories, and we learned that even small moments, like a simple hello or a friendly smile, can make a big difference in how comfortable you feel in a new environment.
Exactly, and we also discussed useful English phrases, simple confidence tips, and common mistakes to avoid so that our listeners can feel more prepared and relaxed on their own first day.
So the main advice is simple. Don't be afraid, take small steps, stay open-minded, and remember that every expert was once a beginner.
And most importantly, believe in yourself, because your first day is not the end of your comfort zone. It is the beginning of your growth.
So, Julia, we've reached the end of today's episode, and we really hope our listeners enjoyed this conversation about the first day at school and learned something useful for their English and for their real life as well.
Yes, Jason. And now we would love to hear from our listeners. Think about your own first day at school. How did you feel? Were you nervous, excited, or maybe a little scared? Share your experience with us in the comments, because your story might help and inspire someone else.
And if you are learning English, don't forget that practice is the key. Try to use the simple phrases we shared today in your daily life, even if it's just a small conversation, because every small step will improve your confidence.
Also, make sure to stay connected with our podcast for more easy English learning episodes like this one. We are here to help you improve your speaking, listening, and confidence step by step.
If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends who are also learning English.
And remember, your journey in English starts with small steps, just like your first day at school. Keep learning, Keep growing and believe in yourself.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.